Life as Ceremony shares personal stories, interviews with inspirational souls, and practical wisdom to help you reconnect with yourself and spirituality. Welcome back to another episode of Life as Ceremony. I'm your host, Sam Squire, and today's episode is a solo episode. We're going to talk about two of my favorite tools to help you strengthen your intuition, which are signs and pendulums. We're also just going to chat about communicating with the other side in general. It's something that we can all do, and I hope today's episode makes that feel more accessible and inspiring. Now, when I say signs, I am not talking about a stop sign, okay? I'm talking about a symbol, a synchronicity, an animal showing up, something that feels meaningful, that brings you a sense of connection. For example, very recently I was in the Yukon and I was on my way to the airport at 6 a.m. and I saw a moose on the street. It was wild and definitely not a coincidence. And the moose represents with its antlers intuition, clairvoyance, illumination, so many different things. But I thought I would start this episode by sharing a story with you about my great-grandmother, Lulu Ironstar. So she started communicating with me directly maybe about 5 years ago, or I should say I started listening or paying attention, and we could be in direct contact about 5 years ago. But prior to that, I had been in, over a decade ago, I had been in sessions with psychic mediums, tarot readers, practitioners in the spiritual realm, and my great-grandmother, Lulu, would often be there, and they would ask me about her. And I couldn't hear her or see her or feel her directly, but the practitioner who I was with absolutely could. And about 5 years ago, I was in a session and she was present, and the practitioner told me that she was really trying to communicate with me directly. And again, I couldn't see her, I couldn't hear her, and I wasn't too sure how to connect. So I just started to meditate on it. And I will never forget, within days after that session, on my iPhone, you know the photo memories? Okay. There's a photo memory from years prior of me and my partner and my dog. And you know how on the photo memory it says the location? In big bold letters across this photo, it says Lulu Island. And I will never forget the moment when I saw her name, and it just felt really significant. And I had no idea what Lulu Island was. So when I see a photo of myself at a pumpkin patch, thinking I'm in Richmond, and it says Lulu Island across the photo, which I did not put there, I was so confused. It felt even more significant or serendipitous because I was like, what is happening? So I opened Google Maps on my phone and looked up Lulu Island, and sure enough, the pumpkin patch that we were at in Richmond, the area, is called Lulu Island. After that, I started to see her name everywhere. I saw it. There was a restaurant called Lulu's Restaurant. Also, I should say, Lululemon doesn't count. Okay, I live in Vancouver. I am around and surrounded by a lot of Lululemon. And for me, that does not count as connecting with my great-grandmother. Sorry, Lulu. Because, yeah. And you can make your own rules with your own signs, but for me, I needed a more clear sign than the word Lululemon or that symbol. And anyways, her name started to appear in all kinds of different ways. Another really funny, rare one that I remember was I was watching an episode of Seinfeld, and the server's name tag was Lulu. Also, okay, so I recorded this episode a couple days ago, and I'm re-recording it right now long story short, the second half of the audio quality was really bad because basically I got too excited and kept hitting the microphone. So I'm going to try to do better with that today. It's work in progress, okay? So the day I recorded this episode, I go on Instagram and this is hours after I recorded it. And I see on my friend's Instagram story, like, at such and such place with Grandma Lulu. And I messaged her and I was like, that's wild. I just recorded a podcast episode about signs and pendulums and shared the story about my great grandmother, Lulu Ironstar, and how I would often see her name places. And to be honest with you, I haven't seen her name a lot of places lately. And funny enough, after talking about her and sharing about her in a podcast recording, a few hours later, I literally, not even just Lulu, like Grandma Lulu, which was pretty wild. So anyways, maybe that in itself is a sign I was meant to re-record and share that part of the story with you today. So, and now that I not only see her name, but I will meditate and connect, and just in my own spiritual practice, I think that when it comes to communicating with the other side, we all have our gifts, and sometimes people will hear things, sometimes people will see things, smell things, feel things. You'll just feel it and know it in your body. And you'll know which one you are more drawn to. You can also just start asking if you're curious, and allow spirit to talk to you and notice what you see, what you hear, or what you feel, so that you can connect with your ancestors, but also just connect with your guides and spirit, the way in which spirit is probably already trying to communicate with you. Asking for specific signs. I think a lot of people are looking for signs or clarity with questions like, do I need to quit my job? Do I need to move? Is it time to leave my relationship? Maybe you're single and you're wondering if your partner is on their way to you. Maybe you're wondering if you should get a puppy or another dog. And let me tell you, you don't need a sign for that question. This is actually your sign right now in this moment. Yes. Yes to another dog. Yes to a puppy. The time is now. I actually don't think you need to ask spirit for a sign. So these are the questions that you might want to ask Creator, God, Source, the divine, the universe, whatever term you would like to use. And then the next question is often, well, what should my sign be? If I'm wondering if I need to quit my job or move or leave my relationship, like, what should my sign be? And you can truly ask for anything, and you get to create your own language with the universe. You could ask for a rainbow, a certain bird. You could ask for a pink elephant, or for someone to be wearing a fuzzy orange hat. You could also ask for an angel number. So an angel number is a repeating or patterned sequence of numbers like 1111 or 888 or 444, anything like that. Honestly, a sign can be anything you want it to be. And I encourage you or challenge you to come up with a unique sign. I love hearing stories about when people ask for a ridiculous sign and the universe delivers, okay? So if the sign that you ask for is too easy, like, would you even believe it? Sometimes you'll question it if you see it. I mean, even if the sign is ridiculous and you see it, it is normal to question it at first as we build our sense of trust and this inner knowing of that sign was for me. That sign means this for me. So, and before you ask your big questions, my invitation is to start small. So when you first start, you're building a relationship with signs and symbols and the other side. And with any relationship in life, we need to build trust and connection. So I always invite people to start with a smaller question that's less emotionally charged. Like, if I should buy that sweater, show me a watermelon. If I should sign up for that breathwork class next month, show me the angel number 1111. If I'm supposed to go to yoga, show me orange and white cats, okay? Even silly and simple questions like this help to build our trust and our intuition and our connection. And we even start to notice more general signs in our day-to-day life. We start to notice that the universe is supporting us, conspiring in our favor, and that it will show up for us. We also just start to open our awareness to signs and build mindfulness skills to help us pay attention to the world around us. I love noticing general signs. I notice angel numbers on license plates all the time. If you've ever been in a car with me, you're probably sick of me pointing them out every few seconds. But I love it every time. It brings me a sense of joy and connection. And noticing general signs in my everyday life, whether it's an angel number, a rainbow, a hummingbird, whatever it might be, for me, that's practicing mindfulness. That's practicing gratitude. That in itself is a practice of noticing the magnificence in the mundane when you see these things and they bring you a sense of joy or peace or connection. Now, these general signs, I'm trying to think of other examples, like dimes, a feather, maybe a particular flower, shapes in the clouds, a song lyric, or maybe you have a word that's like a special word to you that feels really meaningful or significant. Now, you'll just start to, as you build your language with the universe, whether you ask for signs or not, you'll start to notice these general signs, which can be really, really fun. It just kind of feels like, it reminds me that spirit is always present. And I think that's, again, really what life as ceremony is all about, that we can live in this state of presence and connection and spirit around us all the time. It is not something that we need to do grandiose things or elaborate rituals in order to bring us into a state of connection, but spirit is actually with us at all times, always trying to communicate with us. We just have to pay attention. And I love signs for this reason, because if we are ever doubting our intuition and just like our feeling, like this felt sense of connection with something greater than ourselves, the way in which symbols show up in our everyday life are extra confirmation and validation. Signs can be specific, but they also don't have to be. For example, maybe a sign for you is when you see a rainbow, you feel supported and protected. Maybe you feel that's your sign and that's your meaning for it. And what I think is so great about signs is all of us get to build our own language. So even though a rainbow might mean that for someone else, it could mean something totally different, which is really cool. You can make these general signs mean something if you want, or you can just like allow them to just, I don't know, mean positivity when you see them or experience them in your daily life. I also want to touch on animal signs quickly. One of my favorite books is, I have it right beside me right now, it's called Animal Speak by Ted Andrews. It's like an encyclopedia for animal totems. And whenever I see animals in my life, some that come to mind, one is I had an experience with a swan in the winter that just lifted its head out of the water as my friend and I were walking by. And swans have to do with spiritual transformation, and just based on what me and my friend were both going through at that time in our lives, it felt spot on, you know what I mean? And recently, I saw that moose in the Yukon. I've seen a few blue jays recently. A friend of mine, whenever she works in her garden, this little hummingbird always appears, and she has sent me some photos and videos of this hummingbird recently. And what I think is so special about her sign and her connection with this hummingbird is she's asked for it to appear along with certain questions, and it has absolutely shown up for her. But also, whenever she tends to her garden, that is when the hummingbird shows up, which I think is really special. Where was I going with that? Okay, Ted Andrews, Animal Speak. Depending on your belief system, you for sure. Like if you want, I believe that you can make things mean what you want them to mean. Okay, if a blue jay means something specific for you, it can mean that. But also, if you are curious about the meaning, you might want to get a book like Animal Speak or something like that, where you can learn about the meanings that already exist in certain traditions and lineages. Yeah. Another sign story. Very recently, I asked Creator for a sign. I asked Creator to show me a hawk if I am meant to move forward with this opportunity that has come up in my life. And the next day, on my friend's Instagram story, there was a hawk on her deck. The video was so close, zoomed in. It felt like the hawk was right in my face. And to be honest, my initial gut reaction was, that's my sign. Wow, spirit showed up for me. And then I got in my own way and was like, but it's on Instagram. Does it really count? And then I got out of my own way and trusted my gut reaction, which was, wow, that's my sign. And I messaged my friend about it and told her, you're not going to believe this. Just yesterday, I asked Creator to show me a hawk if I'm meant to move forward with this opportunity. And then I saw this on your Instagram story, and part of me is questioning if it counts. And she actually, and I'm so glad I messaged her, because she replied to me and said, Sam, that has never, ever happened before. That is the first time a hawk has ever appeared on my deck. That is 100% a sign for you. It's not like that happens on the regular. And then she went on to tell me her own sign story, which was that there is someone in her life who she was asking for a sign about. And she said, you know, if this person is meant to be in my life, like, show me a pineapple, okay? That's going to be my sign. And and it was really specific. She wanted, I think, this person to use the word or show her pineapple. So it couldn't just be a pineapple anywhere. It was like this person would use the word pineapple. And then she was having a conversation with this person. They happened to be talking about breakfast. And this person happened to share what they put in their smoothie that morning and used the word pineapple. My friend also shared that she got in her own way and was like, well, maybe pineapple's really common. maybe that wasn't my sign. But then I was there to validate her. I was like, you know what? I haven't used the word pineapple in so long. And I actually never really put pineapple in my smoothies. So I do think that was your sign. And I think she knows it too. And even just us sharing our sign stories quite serendipitously with each other, I think there's a message in there as well, which is to share and to celebrate our sign stories and to share them with each other, because look what that led to. And it actually led to more trust and more presence and more connection. Yeah. I think celebrating the signs is really important. So when you're with people, share the sign. Like, again, when I'm driving in a car, I see all these angel numbers on license plate, I'll point them out to my dog in the back seat, okay? And, you know, you never want to be a little sign hoarder, okay? So if you see a rainbow or an angel number and you're like, oh, that's my sign, I'm going to keep it secret just for me, yeah. Don't be a little sign hoarder, okay? Share that with your pal who's with you. Share that with your dog in the back seat. Let them know. I think, again, spirit, the other side, signs and symbols, they want to be celebrated. They want to be talked about and spoken about in our daily conversations with our loved ones. Yeah. So as much as we want to protect and honor the sacred, there's also space to celebrate the sacred, and I believe signs are one of those places. Pendulums. So a pendulum is a tool. It is usually like a weighted object, a crystal. Mine's gold and has a metal point. I think some have like a bead, and it's hung on like a chain or a string, and it can swing clockwise, counterclockwise, or back and forth. For me, clockwise means yes, counterclockwise means no, and if it just hangs out in the middle, that feels more like a neutral. So, for example, if I'm asking my pendulum a question, like, should I get another puppy? And I know we know the answer to that is yes, but let's say I just want to ask my pendulum to confirm, I could hold the pendulum. So one thing I like to do, I like to write the word on a piece of paper. If I'm not asking this strict yes or no question, I just find that transmission of energy when you write on a piece of paper, I find that to be helpful, but you also don't have to do that. You could just think the word puppy and the pendulum will move. So your choice. But anyways, my example. Okay. So I'm wondering if I should get a puppy. We know the answer is yes, but we're going to hold the pendulum over the piece of paper that, says the word puppy. And if it swings in a big clockwise motion, yes. Counterclockwise, no. If it hangs out in the middle or it's like not really doing a whole lot, more of a neutral. Okay? I also just want to say neutral's not a bad thing, all right? It's just not like a big change your life soul yes. But there's lots of times I'm working with my pendulum and I get a neutral and I'm like, hey, yeah, then I'm going to do that anyways, Another example where I really love to work with my pendulum is if I am traveling or going on a retreat somewhere, I'll write down different locations or different teachers and hold the pendulum again over the writing that I put on the piece of paper, or you can just think it and feel it in your body and see what the pendulum has to say. I also really like working with the pendulum for supplements or Bach flower remedies or just any sort of remedies or medicines that I'm working with in my spiritual practice. I will test the pendulum on them and see which ones come back as a yes, a no, or a neutral. So I have a little story about when I was working with my pendulum with a friend. So a good friend of mine, she was moving, and that decision was already made. She had her clarity that she was moving, but she was lacking clarity on when would be the best time to move. So back in March, maybe April, it was spring, okay? We were talking about when she should move. And I was like, do you want to ask my pendulum? And she was like, you have your pendulum on you? And I said, yes, I always have my pendulum on me. I actually do carry my pendulum with me at all times. You never know when you're going to need to ask a question, right? And my friend who sees the hummingbirds in her garden, she beaded me this beautiful sacred little pouch for my pendulum, and there's cedar and yarrow on it to cleanse and protect and charge my pendulum. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. And so yeah, I carry my pendulum with me at all times. So, okay, my friend who's moving, I ask her if she wants to ask the pendulum. She is like, you have it with you? Yes, I do at all times. I bring out the pendulum. And how we asked when she should move is we tested each month. So we did April, May, June, July, and I remember holding the pendulum and we went through each month really slowly, and when we got to July, the pendulum was swinging and we kept going, and we knew that was like the big yes. Like it got louder the closer we got to July, and then when we went to August and September, the pendulum went quiet again. It'll give you like a big yes or a small yes depending on how big the swing is, you know what I mean? And then we even checked, is it the beginning of July or the end of July? And turns out it was the end of July, and she moved at the end of July. So the pendulum was right. Okay, cleansing, charging, and protecting your pendulum. I mean, I personally don't work with really hard, rigid rules. I think part of it is asking your pendulum or asking your own intuition. How do you want me to work with the pendulum? How does it want to be cleansed, charged, and protected? Some people might put it out in the full moon or the new moon, or, if burning medicines is part of your spiritual practice that you feel comfortable doing, maybe there's another way that you cleanse, protect, and charge it. Because I need to carry my pendulum with me at all times, I thought that having some cedar and yarrow and plants that I have a relationship with on my pouch would support that. Yeah. Some tips for working with your pendulum. It's really important that you are grounded and clear. So what what you're thinking and feeling, that is energy, and it goes into the pendulum. So please don't ask really emotionally charged questions, especially when you are not grounded, because all the pendulum is going to do is mirror your fears. Okay? So we can ask about emotionally charged questions, but we really have to get to that grounded place where we feel we are a clear channel. I think that's why people often really enjoy working with tarot readers or psychics or practitioners, even a practitioner who works with a pendulum, is because that person is such a clear channel. They have to be. It's part of their job and their daily life and work. And sometimes it's almost as if we trust their intuition more than our own. But that's also why I really like signs and pendulums, because they kind of bring us back into connection with our own intuition, and we don't feel like we need to outsource to anybody else. But it is important that you are grounded. Otherwise, your pendulum is just going to mirror your fears. It's similar to signs. You want to start small and build a relationship with your pendulum. So ask it, smaller questions at first rather than larger questions, and really build this sense of trust with it so that when you ask your bigger questions, you believe it. Also, I kind of wonder if folks are going to ask me where to get a pendulum after listening to this episode. So this is not sponsored. I'm sure you can buy them on the internet. But also, if you live in Vancouver, Banyan Books has really beautiful pendulums. If you live in Winnipeg, there is Radiance on Corden Avenue. There's Elemental. It used to be called Elemental Bookshop. There's also Divine Clarity in St. James. So those are the only two cities where I know where to get pendulums, because I've been there before. But I'm sure there's I'm sure that there is a spiritual shop near where you live, or I'm sure you can find one online if you do want to get one. And if not, start asking for your signs, start noticing the signs, start working with the signs, and build your relationship and your language with the other side. Thank you so much for listening to today's solo episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, please leave a review. It really helps to support the podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much for being here.